Genesis 38. Get ready for sex, sex work, masturbation, murder, and a birth story that makes no biological sense. It's the chapter they will never teach you in Sunday school. I know you're all dying to learn about what happened to Joseph, but first we're gonna go on a weird X-rated tangent for an entire chapter. Remember Judah? He's the brother who suggested selling Joseph into slavery as a way to prevent him from being killed. For some reason, we now care about him. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shual. He married her and made love to her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, who was named She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. That is one hell of a vacation right there. Take a break from the family, come back 3 kids later. It's a very impressive sex to birth rate too. Seems like every time they sleep together, a child is born. Use protection, everyone. Some Bible translations do not say Judah got married. They jump right from he met her to he slept with her. Looks like some people decided that part needed a slight edit. Notice that we never learn the wife's name. We know her father was Shua. We know she had 3 kids with names, but she's just on the growing list of no-name biblical women like Lot's wife. And since when are the men in Isaac's family allowed to marry Canaanite women? That used to be totally forbidden. I mean, I'm glad they got over their purity test. I just want to know when that switch was flipped. It seems like Jacob is the only dude in the Bible who had to work for his wives. Everyone else just sees a woman and takes her. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. What? We barely knew him. Okay, a whole lot just happened very quickly. How come Judah just saw a woman and started banging away at her, but doesn't get any say in his wife? Judah just picked Tamar out for him. There is no rhyme or reason behind who gets arranged marriages, who gets to pick his own wife, and who has to work 7 years before the wedding. And then, a sentence later, God murders him. For what? How was he wicked? It could literally be anything. Should I be worried? No wonder his name is spelled E-R. That joke is from Dark Matter 2525. Go watch his video on this chapter. The link is below. It is worth your time. How do we get entire chapters of genealogy, but no details whatsoever about when God might randomly smite you? But death makes Tamar a free agent. And that's what this chapter is really about. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife, and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother." Yikes. Okay, so apparently wives can just be passed down from dead brother to live brother. Tamar has no say in the matter, I guess. This isn't random though. In Deuteronomy chapter 25, it says if a brother dies without having a child, his brother has to take over and finish the job. And if he refuses to do it, she's supposed to take off his shoe and spit in his face. Because the Bible is nothing if not kinky. Bet you didn't hear about that verse in church. You know, some fathers find it awkward to even talk to their sons about sex. Imagine telling your son who he needs to have sex with. At this rate, the next verse is Judah just telling him which positions to try. Actually, it's not. It's worse. But Onan knew that the child would not be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. Listen, we will talk about that in a second. First, what does it even mean Onan knew the kid wouldn't be his? Yes, it totally would be. That's how genetics works. If he gets her pregnant, he is the father. The Maury episode would be like 2 minutes long. So to avoid impregnating her, he used the pull-out method? So much for every sperm being sacred. It's one thing to do that once, but Onan does it every time. I'm not a woman, but I think Tamar would eventually figure out what he's doing. Call it a hunch. Dude, at least get some condoms. Order them online. It's fine. On a side note, there is an actual word, onanism, that basically means masturbation. So congratulations, guy we're meeting for a few sentences in the Bible. Your legacy is that your name has literally come to mean guy who jizzes on the ground. The Bible, there's Jesus and jizzes. You know, I used to think Christians pushing for abstinence-only sex education was a bad idea, but Christians pushing for comprehensive sex ed may be even worse if this is their textbook. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Sure, why not? He wasn't making any deposits in the bank, so God slaughtered him. It doesn't specifically say if God was mad that Onan wasn't impregnating her, or he wasn't satisfying her, or if God was mad that he was jizzing on the floor and someone else had to clean it up. Take your pick. Christians will generally say Onan didn't do what he was supposed to do and have a child on behalf of his dead brother. But I'm not sure that sounds much better. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up." For he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's household. If 2 of your sons die after marrying Tamar, maybe just find a different wife for son 3. Just an idea. But Judah doesn't tell her to leave because this didn't work out. He says, leave for a while until my 3rd son is old enough to bang you too. Which is not a thing a father should ever say. Which is not a thing the youngest son ever wants to hear. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah, to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went with him. Aww, the wife who didn't even get a name died. We still know nothing about her. All we know is that like a minute after her death, Judah and Hira went on an adventure. This is the worst buddy comedy ever. Those two are totally gonna spill some seed. Get ready for lots of onaning. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep," she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that, though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. So Tamar realized her future husband wasn't coming, so she slipped into a costume and sat near the entrance to this town to intercept her dead husband's father. She wants to be 3 for 4 in this family. How horny does she have to be right now to even consider this? She's on Tinder at the height of a pandemic. She will take anyone who's even mildly safe. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." "And what will you give me to sleep with you?" she asked. They both slipped into those roles very comfortably. How does he not know it's her? I mean, she's wearing a veil, but I assume she has the same voice, same mannerisms, etc. If he doesn't know yet, he's definitely about to. Isn't Judah traveling with his buddy? Where's Hira? Is he making an arrangement for the 2 of them, or just Judah? These are the details the Bible never gets into because it's too busy with genealogies. The irony here is that while Judah is tempted into doing something sinful, Tamar is actually doing something the Bible wants, since she's basically bound to get impregnated by someone from this family. Somehow, selling herself to her kind of relative is what God wants. "I'll send you a young goat from my flock," he said. "Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it?" she asked. He said, "What pledge should I give you?" "Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her, and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Judah continues his perfect batting average. One sexy time, one child. There's going to be a huge population boom very soon at this rate. And did the Bible just say they had sex, but she never took her veil off during the act? And there's no indication that he figured out who she is. How do you not know? In case you're keeping track, Tamar has presumably slept with one brother, technically slept with the second brother, even though he would never finish the job, wanted to sleep with the third brother, and just got paid for sleeping with all three brothers' father. The aristocrats. Good for her, though, for demanding a down payment. I'll take your goat later, but first I want some of your fancy cosplay material. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman, but he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there, "Where is the shrine prostitute who is beside the road at Enaim?" "There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here," they said. That is quite a favor to ask your friend for. "Hey buddy, remember that trip we took? Funny story, I have a baby now, and I need you to give this goat to the mother because she has some of my stuff and we don't really talk anymore." And then the friend can't find her. Did he really look that hard though? Sounds like he just asked a few guys and then gave up. I know Christian movies are bad, but I did not think they would make a Pure Flix version of The Hangover. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who lived there said there hasn't been any shrine prostitute here." Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her." Looks like Tamar got the last laugh. They can't find her, she avoided having to care for a goat, and no one even realizes she was only pretending to be a prostitute this whole time. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result she is now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and have her burned to death." Jesus! Calm down, aggressive district attorney trying to win re-election by cracking down on sex work. Does Judah know he's the daddy? Because if he doesn't, he's about to be very surprised. And notice that he's trying to punish her for being a prostitute, even though he knows damn well he paid for sex. The hypocrisy here is unbelievable. If he's calling for her death, he should be burned at the stake too. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are." Oh, damn. Tamar has the receipts. Forget Onan. This is the climax right here. Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah." And he did not sleep with her again. I would like to know the reaction of everyone else in the room realizing what just went down. This is like when Ross picked up his red sweater in Friends. Look at how quickly he goes from giant hypocrite to righteous moral man. I don't buy it. After all, Judah is still the guy who volunteered to send Joseph into slavery a chapter ago. I like how it says he didn't sleep with her again, as if the plan was to totally sleep with her repeatedly. Anyway, let's finish off this chapter with the weirdest birth story so far. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out. And she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out. And he was named Zerah. I know the Bible makes stuff up, but babies do not come out fist first. If they do, you need a C-section quickly. They at least had to have known that wasn't normal. Not only that, if I have the birth description right here, One baby stuck out his hand. The midwife tied string to it to identify it instead of trying to get him out. The hand went back inside, and then the other baby came out. Okay, seriously, we cannot allow Christians to teach sex ed. No wonder Onan was like, you know what, I'm gonna shoot my load over there. Don't mind me, I cannot deal with biblical pregnancies. So who's the older sibling? The one whose hand shot out first, or the one who fully came out first? Which one gets the birthright? Anyway, Perez is a distant ancestor of Jesus, which is why this has some relevance, I suppose. I think my favorite thing about this chapter is that I was expecting to hear about Joseph's journey into slavery, and ended up hearing about the sex lives of an entirely different group of very kinky people. Preachers are doing it all wrong. If they want people to read the Bible, they should just give out tiny little books with this chapter